Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. Moving and grooving. Number to the program, if you want to call, is 601 879 0002. Look, we've got to talk about Iran. And I know I'm switching gears a little bit, but you can only talk about Jackson for so long. And my views on Jackson, I know, are a little bit different than maybe Clay's or Kim's. And it's not my wheelhouse, as Clay would say. When I see a sappy politician, I am gonna say something about it, especially a cheap move like that. That's like naming your water bill that's gonna restrict water by 80%, the Clean Water Act of 2026. Who's gonna vote against that? And everybody complains when they don't get their water. Office of the Secretary of the United States Air Force. In consultation with the Secretary of War, we will extend the A-10 Warhog platform into 2030. That's a 4-year life extension. And they've been talking about the warthog going away since 2008. Yeah, I was just putting on captain when that no, I was already captain for a little bit. But they were talking about getting rid of it. And sometimes there's just a design that's so darn good, like the B-52. A-10 is in the similar vein, and with its performance over Iran, people are like, "We don't have anything that can do that kind of job." This combat search and rescue, CSAR. A-10s are incredible. Titanium bathtub for a cockpit and an airplane that can take a hit and keep on going. Engines are incredible. The gun is incredible. 11 hard points, updated mission computer, tactical pod. It's just a great deal. And it brings me into these people who are quickly finding out. I mean, maybe perhaps some people are not surprised or are surprised that Tucker is now anti Trump when he was pro Trump. Maybe some people are now surprised that Alex Jones is anti-Trump when he was pro-Trump. Maybe some people like people are surprised at people like Candace Owens who are just bat spit crazy and you don't even wanna know what they're thinking. For me, I've always been an integrity and loyalty guy, and unless something is really jacked up and screwed up, I'm not gonna change horses in the middle of the race because that's never a winner. And what I see is the grift, and we all listen to different podcasts and stuff, and there are some podcasters out there who flat out admit it, ladies and gentlemen. They flat out admit that they're grifting. And that's what Tucker's doing. That's what Alex is doing. He's losing InfoWars. He's got to get his new grift going, and there's no better way than to start yelling at the most popular person on earth walking around on the planet today. And hey, let me bash the president of the United States of America and get some free pub. The libs will come and like me for a little bit, and we'll sit there. But like I said, TDS has a shelf life, and it's gonna expire when President Trump is no longer in office. So what's gonna replace it? Oh, I know. It's gonna go from TDS to IDS, Israel Derangement Syndrome. No matter what the problem is, blame Israel. We've got too much clean water, Israel. We have too much dirty water, Israel. It's raining tomorrow, Israel. I have a hard time walking up the stairs, Israel. Blame the Masood. I'm just so over it. And I was in a discussion, this was on the weekend, but I was in a discussion about why are we actually fighting in Iran? And I know that they've been screaming death to America and, they want to get rid of uh, the United States of America. I also understand warfare a little bit, and I clearly understand how the use of proxies like the Houthis, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and Hamas have completely destabilized the Western Hemisphere. They've already got Europe, and if you go look in Texas right now, Plano, Texas is you would think you're in little Islamabad. Go to Dearborn, Michigan. You're in Little Tehran. Go to Minneapolis, Minnesota. You're in Little Somalia. And this is all done through Hamas, Hezbollah, and the other proxies. Well, we are so soon to forget where Iran got all this money from. And this is a 55-second clip from Fox Business. Maria Bartiromo and Representative Ro Khanna of California, who I know personally, many Republicans actually enjoy listening to him. He's more of a I would probably agree with him probably 15% of the time. I think on some science and space issues, Ro Khanna and I would agree on, but he's left as left can get. And listen to this exchange right here, because this is if you can't synthesize this in your own brain, if you can't get this through, then it's I'm not gonna say that you are an idiot or anything like that. No, I'm just saying you're not getting it. And it's up to people who like us who understand why we're doing what we're doing, to try to explain it in a better way. I don't like the gotcha politics. I don't like the name calling. I can do all that without getting petty like that. But listen to this right here.
Are you suggesting that Obama's leadership on Iran was better? Because
how many people have said, "Oh, if we only had President Obama back." Oh, I wish we had President Obama back. He was a bad dude, man. He ushered in the LGBTQ era. Think of that, a Muslim bringing homosexuality into the United States of America. Everybody remembers the clip on CBS where he had to say, "We're a Muslim country, I mean Christian country." And CBS dutifully covered it up. Makes you wonder what else CBS was covering up, but listen to this.
under President Obama, there were 14 wire transfers to a hold on. There were 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. That was a total of $1.7 billion. The same $1.7 billion he told Congress was frozen Iranian assets.
Do you remember that when we froze all of those assets? And some of those assets are still frozen? But yet 14 wire transfers to a Swiss account linked to Hezbollah between 2014 and 2016. That is a lot of scratch. $1.7 billion in 2014 to 2016 is a heck of a lot more than $1.7 billion in 2026 money.
Now, there was a back channel to Tehran through Valerie Jarrett, active for 2012 to 2024. This was after he left office.
So now you've got a former president of the United States subverting the current president of the United States with back channels with Miss Valerie Jarrett, whose reputation is clean and pristine as the white wind-driven snow. Do you not see why we're fighting something much bigger than just Iran? This plan to sink the United States, they have to kill the United States. We have the greatest form of government on earth. Dare I say better than Israel's. And we are the one thing that's keeping everything afloat. They've got to sink it, and they know that they can't sink us militarily. Iran has made that evidently clear. But what they can get at is the weak public of the United States of America. Because as long as we got our CBT gummies and our Starbucks coffee, hey, we're good.
You know, it was almost like a shadow government. He also sent pellets of cash in a plane to Iran. Now,
I just love the way she says cash. Pallets of cash. I wish I was so hooked up with President Obama that he would send me pallets of cash. Think about this. He gave $1.7 billion to Iran, and he enslaved the poorest of the poor in America to Obamacare. And they like it. You can do whatever you want. Don't take away my Obamacare.
Why would you send money to Iran knowing that they are building a nuclear weapon and they are the leading sponsor of terrorism?
And Ro Khanna is just sitting there going, I don't know. Why would the president have a shadow government linked up with the state world state leading sponsor of terrorism? Why? So when people come after me saying I'm a warmonger and I just wanna fight, 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 no, I just know where my enemies are, and I would rather take the fight to them than to have them take the fight to us, because they're taking the fight to us in places like Plano, Texas, Dearborn, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Seattle, Washington, and even here in Mississippi. We don't wanna talk about that. Gotta be careful what I say, but we don't wanna talk about that. Here, let's listen to what Ro Khanna has to say.
Barack Obama was a great statesman who left America much safer. I wouldn't put Donald Trump in the.
And then they cut him off at the clip. I didn't cut that off, that's where the clip cuts off. So, President Obama is a great statesman who sent billions of dollars to our enemy, who fund suicide bombers all over Lebanon, Israel, Africa, Yemen, the United States. Not suicide bombers, but suicide attackers. You had the attack in New York in front of Mondami's house that thankfully didn't work out. You had the Islamic terrorist in Austin, Texas, who shot up a nightclub, killed, I believe, 7 people wearing property of Islam and an Iranian T-shirt. We've played the clips on here several times and saying that, look, that they're playing for keeps, and you're trying to play for president of the PTO organization at your school. We have to wake up. There's so much more to this. We're going to talk about the ships that were boarded, new capabilities coming into the theater, and maybe I'll get into my theory on war, because what we're doing right now is we're playing by a set of rules that is designed to make us lose. And I don't mind playing by rules that are tough, but I want a fair fight. But in war, there's not fair fights. And we've got to talk about it right here on the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYB. We'll be right back.
Are math and arithmetic taught differently now than they were in?
Oh, yeah. It's the dulcet tones of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYAB. This is great stuff. Just good stuff keeps on coming in from Iran. And it just goes to show you the great work that our military is doing. And I want to focus some more on that because I find it important. And the things that I see are different than what most people see. And it's just the pattern and the way it works. This is coming from CNBC also. People don't realize this, but there was a lot of bad stuff on that tanker that the USS Spruance blasted a hole through its engine room on. CNBC.
It will also hurt them. It'll hurt them militarily. They use the bridges for their weapons, for their missile movements. You know, they're trying to move the missiles because we've obliterated most of their missiles, and they're trying to move their missiles around, even during the ceasefire, which I think was a good thing because we're totally loaded up. We have so much ammo. We have so much of everything that we've like a much more powerful than it was 4 or 5 weeks ago. So we've used this to restock, and they probably have done a little bit of restocking. We caught a ship yesterday that had some things on it, which wasn't very nice. A gift from China, perhaps. I don't know. But I was a little surprised, but because I have a very good relationship, and I thought I had an understanding with President Xi, but that's all right. That's the way war goes, right? But I will tell you that our military is incredible, what we've done. I mean, think of it.
Yep. President Trump saying that they found something on that tanker that we blew a hole in the engine room in. And what was it that we found? Dual-use chemicals for the production of intercontinental ballistic missiles. And that's just the stuff that they can get at. They're not gonna be able to get into a lot of those container cabinets until it gets pulled dockside. They unload all the containers, and they go through it one by one. That's gonna be quite an interesting find. We sit there, this whole argument about gas prices in fertilizer and the temporary cost increases that we're gonna pay, it's nothing to what we went through in World War II. It's nothing that we went through in World War I. We've got it so good in America that we can fight wars and still get our Big Mac value meals at McDonald's. We've got it so good that we don't have to worry about waiting in line for gas because we can make all of our own if we have to. We've got it so good that our supply chains from around the world don't get disrupted. Now, other countries are having a bad day. China's having a bad day. Europe is having a bad day. Remember, they were the ones who cut off that one pipeline, got blown up, whether it was Russia or the Ukraine, still to be determined. And they said they weren't worried about it because they had the Green New Deal over there. They're all about the green energy. What's up, brother Dogfish? See you, brother. You know, they're supposed to be all independent and good to go. They're the ones hurting. But this is why I want to fight this battle now, because the longer we delay it, the more powerful the enemy's going to be. And the rules of war, we're following Geneva. We're following international law. It's the Iranians who are not. They're the ones who are putting their civilians, their women, their children around military targets to stop us from bombing them, and we do. We do not bomb them. We stop. And maybe I phrased that a little incorrectly. We do not bomb that when we have civilians in the area. This is a complete reversal of logic. And in the next hour, we're going to talk about the mind rot. I've got some examples of it. But we have to fight the battle now. We just sent a bunch more EA-18G Growlers, electronic warfare planes over the Middle East. And I looked up the actual numbers and who went where, and I'm not going to put that over the airwaves, but I'm just going to say it's a significant deployment. We have the best stuff, and we have a chance now to have real meaningful change in Iran. The Iranian people have had enough. You know, Iran went through their AI moment back in 1979 when their youth couldn't keep up with their business class. And so they just went to straight socialism through Islam. And look at where it is now. The same thing will happen right here in the United States if we don't fight this wokeness, this Common Core math, this 3C reading. Yep, it's bad. But no, we've got to be mad at President Trump for whatever reason. Now, this is for all the MPVR people out there. I know that there's a lot of people in MPVR that are upset with Trump. And I can't say that I don't get upset with the way that he phrases stuff, but his decision making is good. And listen to this, what's coming out.
Under the disastrous Biden administration, this Pentagon waged an unrelenting war on our warriors on many fronts, including when it came to denying them simple medical autonomy and the freedom to express their religious convictions. In other words, our men and women in uniform were forced to choose between their conscience and their country, even when those decisions posed no threat to our military readiness. You know what I'm talking about, what happened, COVID-19 and the vaccine. No more. That era of betrayal is over. Under President Trump, the War Department continues to take decisive action to once again restore freedom and strength to our joint force. We're seizing this moment to discard any absurd, overreaching mandates that only weaken our warfighting capabilities. In this case, this includes the universal flu vaccine and the mandate behind it.
How about that, MPVR? How about that, ladies and gentlemen who are upset with Trump's words, his demeanor, his swag, his drip? He's directed the Secretary of War to get rid of the vaccination mandate in the United States military. I wish I would have had that. I would only get sick once a year when I was on active duty, and it was about 2 days after that damn flu shot. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And then they make you get the bird flu shot and then the swine flu shot. They gave me the swine flu shot. I was out for 2 weeks. I was quarantined at Tyndall Air Force Base. I was not allowed to leave my abode, my house. My kids went to go spend time with their friends because we didn't want to get everybody else sick because of that stupid shot. And we've had thousands of able-bodied service members quit the military during the COVID because they didn't want to get the clot shot. You know what needs to happen? We need to pass a law in Mississippi that every student, every junior and senior in high school has to watch Died Suddenly. Has to watch it. We need to make it a mandate in every school district. Public school, private school, charter school, homeschool. Homeschool people will love it. I wouldn't be shocked if Died Suddenly was in a homeschool curriculum. But I want to finish this up.
The notion that a flu vaccine must be mandatory for every service member everywhere in every circumstance at all times is just overly broad and not rational. Our new policy is simple. If you, an American warrior entrusted to defend this nation, believe that the flu vaccine is in your best interest, then you are free to take it. You should. But we will not force you because your body, your faith, and your convictions are not negotiable. Your health.
My body, my choice. My body, my choice. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice of where I send my kids to school. I'm pro-choice on what I put into my body and what my kids have put into their body. I'm pro-life. Don't get me wrong, but let's finish this up.
It's common sense. It's the kind of.
And there you go. That's absolutely awesome when the good old Windows 11 update goes at the end of the segment, but that's okay because we are broadcast professionals here at 1039 WYAB. I am Andrew Gosser, and we'll take our commercial break and be right back.
Under the disaster, your faith and your conviction, American warrior in.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 1039 WYB. Brother Rick says one death is a tragedy. A million deaths is a statistic. You ain't lying, brother. You ain't lying. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. all sorts of texts coming in. Some of them are pretty good. I retweeted once. One sent me a picture of, remember Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street? Well, they have the picture of Bert on the nose of an A10 going Bert, and if you know, you know. It's the sound of freedom right there. Then another unknown texter, Andrew, I don't quite understand. What do you mean you weren't allowed to see your kids after the shot? Did it make you sick? Did it give you the flu or what happened? Yeah, it gave me the darn swine, or yeah, it was swine flu. And I was a single father. And so my kids packed up shop for 2 weeks, went over, some lived with their buddies for 2 weeks. And they had parents supervised, nothing crazy. But I was literally quarantined. 325th Medical Group, Tyndall Air Force Base. Would have been 2010, I think. 29, something like that. Can't remember the exact date, but that's what happened. And that's the kind of stuff that, doesn't get talked about, and why we need to have curriculum change here in Mississippi. It would be great if the whole world saw that, but could you imagine if every Mississippian just had watched, died suddenly one time? Whether you're pro-vax or anti-vax. I'll tell you what, I sat down and watched it with several PhDs, virologists, neurologists, people who do this for a living, and some of them who were very pro-vaccine. And when that show was over, they were all silent and they were all quiet. And I'm not saying they changed their view, but I'm telling you that's what happened. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see. Another texter says, uh, Charlie was exposing the wound, the cause, and they could not allow that. Evil times we live in. Yep, that's a fact. They had to martyr Charlie because Charlie was getting to the kids. You see where I say this is a war for our children? Charlie was getting to the kids who could read and write. And in the next hour, we're gonna talk about our education system, including some of the craziness coming out of Kosciuszko. Craziness in Kosciuszko. It's gonna be it's when you hear what they're doing there, you're gonna be, well, some of you will be excited, some of you will be upset, but that's alright. Evil times, man. And you know what? That's why radio shows like this are so important, because we're away from the mainstream media, we're away from the social media, we're just going and we're pointing that stuff out. I know I didn't finish the Pete Hegseth video. I don't have time to finish it. Well, yeah, I do. We're gonna go play this on the way out.
Entrusted to defend this nation, believe that the flu vaccine is in your best interest, then you are free to take it. You shouldn't. But we will not force you, because your body, your faith, and your convictions are not negotiable. Your health. It's common sense. It's the kind of common sense approach we're undertaking in this department. Rest assured that under President Trump, the War Department will always honor our brave warriors and do everything we can to restore the American people's trust in their military for generations to come. And that's why I'm proud to sign this new policy.
And the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, signs the new policy. It feels good to have a field grade officer in charge of the Pentagon. I'm sorry, but it feels darn good. We need more field grade officers and CGOs in charge of the military. Just my opinion. We're coming up to the break. Stay tuned to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yes, you are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube, and we're streaming at the mothership, WYAB.com. So if you can't pick us up on the 50,000 watt blowtorch, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the stream. We greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on X at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. And also, not in this segment, but the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is to equip the saints. Who are the saints? You are the saints. And I'm really pleased to be joined in the studio by Todd Sandrich from Sanderson Foundations. And brother, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Good to see you.
I'm excited to talk about it because, you know, this show is all about building foundations, firm foundations for arguments, and you're about building firm foundations and repairing firm foundations for your most important asset in your family is your home.
It is. And I mean, I think everybody that looks at that, Andrew, is the same way. And I mean, and I feel the same way. And you know, it's interesting when you look at the biblical side of foundations, when you look at the family side of foundations, you look at the actual practical side of a foundation. And, you know, there's always something that's trying to uproot it, to try to get to it. In our situation, most of the time it's water, and so we do a lot of remedy stuff, and we do a lot of foundation repair. We do a lot of preventative maintenance, for people who don't want to have foundation problems.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen. Most people don't get that, and it's interesting. Everybody wants to put off the preventative maintenance, and until something bad happens, and when something bad happens, it costs money, right? So preventive maintenance doesn't cost that much.
Nope, it really doesn't. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of people out there, first-time homeowners, don't really realize they're buying new construction. They think that everything's going to be all right. And as someone who's bought new construction, and then 3 years later, I wasn't in this state, it was in a different state, but my foundation did crack, and I did have to go out and get it fixed. And a new home after 4 years, you're kind of upset at that. So.
A funny story is, typically when we go in and we see something that's got a problem, we will take a look at it, and we're really good at it. And that's what I've trained my people to do at Superior Foundation, is to make sure that we not only diagnose what the problem is, but we also communicate to them in a language they can understand what happened. And it's interesting, even in newer houses. We just did one. The house was 2 years old in a big subdivision in Madison. The guy's like, how on earth did this happen? Well, it was a sewer leak underneath the home, and it probably happened the day that they were roughing in the plumbing, right, on a new foundation, on a new slab, and a joint didn't get glued right. There's a little bit of separation there, something like that happened, and that little bit of water, Andrew, can deteriorate over time and get with that weather clay, and it can do just a terrible damage. Fortunately for them, they caught it early. We had to lift a little bit of a corner of the house. Not a big deal. The guy ended up selling the house a week later, because a lot of people have problems that, oh my gosh, what if I have it repaired? Can I sell? It was a week later they sold the house. So we warranty it.
I'm kind of curious to talk about the technology of how you actually lift a corner of a house, because my house was built in 1940. I own an old farm home in Terry. But how is it that you get in there and actually lift a house to where it doesn't screw up all the stuff that's already there? I'm a layman when it comes to this.
Look, and it is, and it's fun. Love to have you out sometime while we're doing it. So a house like yours, you may be on a raised foundation. If it's an old farmhouse, it may be on a conventional. Those are a little different, but nonetheless the same. They've got a footing, right? So you've got a perimeter footing, and you've got interior footings on every single home, particularly a monolithic slab. What we have to do is we have to dig down. We have to actually dig down and get under that footing, which is typically 2 foot deep. So we get down there, we do a 3x3 hole, typically will get us down there. And then we press a push pier down with a hydraulic jack, and we press it, and we use the weight of the house or the building, right? And we use that. And once it picks up into a non-weather clay, which is a non-expanding clay, then it'll grip. It's a friction-based pier, and then it'll start picking up. Once we get to that point, we stop. We get all the piers in line, then we start jacking, and we actually use a big 10-ton jack. And you're going like eighth inch at a time. And so you go up, and you got somebody inside, outside, looking at sheetrock, making sure windows don't break, things like that. We get up. Now, obviously, is there a chance that a toilet sewer 3-inch line comes undone? It does. It happens all the time. But that's usually the cause of what's happened. But at the end of the day, we lift them up, and we just did a big one right over here in Lake Caroline, not far from your studio. That house was 6.5 inches off on the water.
Whoa.
When I tell you, Andrew, you walk outside the back door of this place, it is gorgeous. And it's one of my favorite calls. I got the call yesterday about 11 o'clock, and the selling realtor, so the realtor representing the seller, she called me. I actually knew the buyer's representative as well, but she called me. She goes, oh my gosh, I'm walking out here, and you've made this house flat. When I tell you 6.5 inches off, that's a lot. You feel that,
That's
right?
huge.
You're walking downhill.
Yeah.
And she was in there yesterday just singing our praises, and I'm thankful for her and all the other realtors that trust us to do that. And it was a big job. I mean, it took us a week and a half to get it, but we've got it flat, and we got it right. And now that beautiful house sitting on the water in Lake Caroline that's worth a ton of money is now worth a ton of money again. Right?
In the fix, you got it done in a meaningful time. I've got a question.
Yeah.
What are some of the signs that that your house is starting to lean or starting to become off kilter?
It's funny. Even in a 6-inch like that, I talked to the homeowner. She goes, I didn't really notice. Well, when you're in there every day and it goes down a little bit over time, you probably don't. I mean, I'm pretty sensitive to it, but most of the time you'll start seeing cracks, and usually it follows its way above headers, above doors and windows where you're distributing weight, between a door or window. You see it a lot on exterior brick and things like that. You see it on sheetrock. Now, that doesn't mean every time you see a crack, don't freak out. We give free estimates to Superior Foundation, so we're happy to come out and measure it for you. Doesn't mean every time you've got that, but typically that's where it starts. If a crack on the exterior, if it's starting from the top and going down, doesn't always mean you got foundation. Now, if it starts from the bottom, that typically means you may have a problem there. And again, what we tell people, Andrew, is just call us. We give free estimates. Do it early, because if you wait too long, like this house I was just telling you about, we had to lift the whole thing. That's expensive, right? And then guess what we got to do? We got to do some flooring work. We got to do sheetrock work. We got to do outside porch work because we've torn up everything. And we also had to tear up some of the driveway to get the drain that should have been there in the first place, and that would have prevented it all.
That's really interesting. My house in Oklahoma, I bought the lowest house in the neighborhood, which was sad because everything rolled downhill, rolled right into my garage. They did a poor excuse of a drainage. And I know my house in Oklahoma had to go through that. Where can we find you on the net?
So you can find us at superior.ms. You can call our office or text us at 601-941-2125. You can get on, obviously, on superior.ms, and we've got a place there. You can go and make an appointment. Somebody will always call you back. Lisa, or one of our sweet girls at the office, will always call you back, get your info, and schedule an appointment for one of our guys to come out.
I think that was one of the things that is really important to people who are looking at this. And unfortunately, we're a lot like ostriches. We just want to stick our head in the sand and pretend that it's not there. And the door jam's a little tight, so I'm just going to muddle through it. And then all of a sudden, we're in a bad spot. It's a free estimate. So, and that's just it. You're going out there and you're getting the peace of mind saying, hey, this is all in your head, or hey, you've got a small problem here, or you've got something that you really need to fix.
And we're not taking a ton of your time. I mean, it takes 30 or 45 minutes for us to go in there. We measure the exterior of the house. We go in and shoot elevations real quick. And it's a pretty simple process to diagnose, do we have an issue? And I think it's a big thing too, that we're a local company. So our warranties are good, and we do what we say we're going to do.
How long have you all been in business?
So 12 years. I've been a contractor here in central Mississippi for 27 years. My partner and I opened Superior Foundation Services in 12 years ago in March. So just past 12 years. And we are now number one in the market.
That's pretty incredible.
Yes, we're blessed.
You're busy. So you in all the counties, right? Like Yazoo, Madison, Rankin, Copiah, obviously Hines.
All of them. Andrew, we try. We've worked in Alabama. We've worked in Louisiana. We've worked in North Mississippi. Yeah, we do a lot of work. We do a lot of work in the Triangle area. It's funny how it goes in phases. We do a lot of work in that kind of Kosciuszko area, a lot in Yazoo City, Benton area. We've done is down at the coast. We've done, Hattiesburg, Laurel, Ellisville, that kind of area too. So we go all over the state.
That's pretty awesome. Do you have like one story where you're just like, man, this is going to be a difficult one, but it's completely changed the value of the home, and like the owners were just like beyond impressed?
So the one I just told you about, there's several of those, and the reason why those are such good stories is because that house is on the water. So you can imagine, Andrew, hydraulic pressure, right? So if you ever stuck something in the mud where it's wet and you try to pull it out, and that hydraulic pressure and it sucks it back down. So that's what that is doing to the footing. And we can't guarantee, I'm going to go in there, we're going to lift it some. I can't guarantee if a house is 6-7 inches off, can I get it up that much, right? And particularly on the water, that water level changes by the day. We've had an issue with we did an old apartment complex last summer in Jackson. It was built in 1950s. It was actually an Army base, and they built it on conventional foundation, probably much like your farmhouse. And that one, we found some interesting stuff underneath it, among some critters and snakes and stuff like that. But the coolest thing is you get to see that even say 75, 80 years ago, their construction on their footings and things like that were roughly the same, right? And we actually attack it the same way, and we do conventionals. We did a lot of encapsulation and moisture barriers under that, and we did uh, fans and things to make sure that we control the humidity, dehumidifiers, all that stuff. So, we've had both commercial and residential. We got a bunch of stories. Most of them revolve around properties on the water, though.
Yep. And in Mississippi, we're either really dry or we're really wet. And unfortunately, I was a highway commissioner. I was dealing with roads, and the hydraulic and water is just the scariest thing out there, right?
That's why our roads are bad.
I'm shocked. I actually drove through Jackson the other day, not to try to switch the subject, but some of those roads, I was like, man, if I was still in office up in Illinois, I would be ran out of office.
Oh, absolutely.
But this is really awesome. So you not only do or residential, but you do commercial work as well, right?
We do.
Is there any job that's too big to do?
I haven't seen one. I mean, obviously, there's probably some that we'd have to gang up on with some other people. I mean, I think, we depending on the crew size, but we haven't run across one yet, so praise God, we've got a good crew and we got a bunch of good people around us.
Brother, why don't you tell us once again where we can find you online? Do you have any social media and your phone number?
Yeah, you can find us all over Facebook, Instagram at Superior Foundation Services, superior.ms online. And as always, give us a call or text at our office, 601-941-2125.
Brother, I really appreciate you coming in the studio today.
Thank you.
And I feel like people not only got to learn about your company and everything, but also how it really applies to their homes.
Absolutely.
And it's something that you, as a homeowner, I'm always keeping track of it. And even when I was renting, it would be like, oh, I don't want to rent here. This is a little bit off.
Yep.
And we'll have to have you in the studio again, my friend.
Look forward to it, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is the Andrew Gosser Show. We'll be right back. And we are back here on the Andrew Gosser Show. We had an awesome segment. Really appreciate. I didn't get a chance to say it, but our sponsors are the absolute best.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you haven't recognized that voice, that's Mr. Chip Matthews, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Filling in for Lindsay today.
He's going to be filling in for the Lindsay Beckham Show from 12 to 1. And he was in the office already. I'm like, brother, let's go and talk about this. Now, I'm going to qualify this conversation, Chip, with the Mississippi State Constitution.
Okay.
We know our lawmakers know of it.
They don't use it.
Whether we use it or not is another subject. And that's being totally fair. And I'm just going to read this. This is Article 3, Section 18, freedom of religion. There's no religious test is a qualification for office shall be required, and no preference shall be given by law to any religious sect or mode of worship by the free employment of all religious settlements, and different modes of worship shall be held sacred. The rights hereby secured shall not be construed to justify acts of lasciviousness, injurious, or morals, or dangerous to the peace and safety of the state. And that's where they get Islam, by the way.
Yeah.
Or to exclude the Holy Bible from use in any public school in this state. I say all that to say this. Did you see this story coming out of Kosciuszko? I'm pulling it up right here. It's absolutely incredible. Listen to this. Public schools add prayer rooms for Christians in Kosciuszko Public School. They're doing it.
Prayer rooms?
Prayer rooms.
Oh.
Yeah. Here, I got to just turn up the font a little bit. 2 public schools in Kosciuszko have announced remodeling projects that improve exclusive spaces for Christian students to pray. Okay. Liz Collins, a reporter for Alpha News who's breaking the story, first broke the story and rocked the town of Kosciuszko, a suburb here in Mississippi. She reports that the high school will construct a prayer room and potentially a foot washing station. Now, yeah, my wife and I, we had a foot washing ceremony when we got married. It was actually pretty sweet. A school district spokesperson said that the prayer room had simply been mislabeled on construction documents, and in fact, it will be a multi-purpose room.
Multi-purpose instead of a prayer room.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So what they did is they put in this grant for the Mississippi State Legislature to pay for a remodel in Kosciuszko up there, and it was really a Christian prayer room. Now, do you have a problem with the prayer room?
I have no problem with the prayer room.
Do you think that that's really Kosciuszko that I'm talking about? No, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not talking about Kosciuszko. Public schools had prayer rooms and foot washing stations for Muslims in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Well, what makes you think we're not going to get them here?
Oh, they're already here.
Yeah.
I've already mapped it out. I've got a map of 3 of the main Islamic centers here, and they're moving and grooving. In Flowood, you can go into some medical centers, and the main text is Arabic. It's not even English. I've got the pictures of it.
And what are we going to do?
What
are we going to do? I mean, how long is the legislature, which they're out of session now, and so they feel like, ooh, we got through that all right. How long are they going to continue to go down the path of non-responsive to the things that are going on in our world? I mean, it's non-responsive. They're like, and look at coming up next election, everybody that's running for governor is going to change the entire face of the government of Mississippi.
Yep.
Because you don't have a guy running for state auditor. You don't have a guy running for treasurer. You don't have a guy. All these people are running for governor. And I think they're running for governor for cover, not for any other reason. Or has it happened now that the whole world, they realize they see the writing on the wall, and the whole government of Mississippi is about to completely collapse?
We are so dependent on the federal funds coming into this state. It's not even funny.
Well, we're a communist state. We're socialism at its best.
We are dependent on the federal government for the things that we have.
Every dollar we give them, we get $1.97 back.
That's incredible. So
we should just invest in Mississippi government.
We had 5 Sharia law bills, anti-Sharia law bills in the House of Representatives.
How many passed?
They all didn't even get a vote.
Okay.
And the thing about it was, and the listeners of this audience know, but maybe yours don't, you can pass this along, is that they were from 5 different state representatives. You had what I would call the blue blood Republicans, the mainstream Republicans, the conservative Republicans, the libertarian Republicans. You had all the flavors of conservatism Republican covered, from the very liberal to the very conservative, and not one of them got through. And you've got State Rep Becky Curry down there in Brookhaven. She's been interviewing gynecologists, and what's coming into the United States are these women who have been have surgical procedures through Sharia law, and now we have to take care of them. And that's not good.
No,
because I don't know any schools over in Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates or Oman or Qatar that have schools for gynecology over there.
No.
It's not a thing. It's more of a Western type of
over
thing.
there, it's just off with your head.
Oh yeah, if you're
off with your head.
If you're a homosexual in Saudi Arabia or in Iran, they just push you off of buildings. That's what they do. And you can go look that up on places like LiveLeak. If you
So Trump is actually saving these people by blowing up all these buildings.
I'll tell you what. Well, that's the thing. People are so upset. It's TDS is like infecting everybody. Even people you thought who supported Trump in the beginning. The Tuckers and Alex Joneses, they're TDSing out. They're realizing that Trump is about to go, and they've got to jump on their next grift.
Right. They're only out in it for money. They're never about what they say. It's like on this radio station, everybody here believes every word we say.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter if Trump's in office tomorrow, or Biden's in office, or Obama was in office.
He should be in jail.
We feel the same way about all of it.
Yep. It's the consistency of our ideas and thoughts that keep being proven true.
It's not that hard to go by the Bible.
Nope. It's pretty simple, and it's not something that you thump over somebody's head. That's why not my goal of mentioning my faith so much. It's just showing how ingrained it is into our morals and fabric in society.
America's made on it.
Yep.
And those of us who think right, even if you're 50 or 60 or 70, you were brought up in a church in Mississippi. And even that, that even goes for the Democrats.
Yep.
See, I look at it. I look at the religious aspect of Mississippi as the Democrats and the Republicans were brought up right, but the politicians are the only ones who believe in this other stuff because it's their grift. It's how they make their money.
Yep.
It's their personal business, and it doesn't have anything to do with us, y'all, because all they want is when you make $1, we own the first 8 cents out of it. And then everything else that we can tax out of you, we're going to tax it out of you, and we're going to give it to a nonprofit, and then we're not going to regulate that nonprofit.
I've spent time on this show, and I know that there are 2 people who do it now. They use their AI to go look at all these nonprofits, specifically in Mississippi, and we're going to have them actually in the studio maybe next month, I hope, where they can talk about, look at, this is what I found, and here's all the sources, and we're going to look at that. But it's funny to see how Mississippi, we think we're so conservative, but we're really not.
No, we're in a state that Benny Thompson has 30 counties, and he controls the river. If y'all want to look at it from a war that we're having with conservatives versus non-conservatives, if you want to look at the war and who's winning, Benny Thompson, this is not a red state. Over from 55, from one end, from Memphis to Macomb, that's all Benny Thompson territory on the west side of the state. The other 3
are dividing up the spoils.
And they're on the side. And and if you look at it, he controls the Mississippi River, he controls I-55, and he controls all the data centers, he controls all the food that's produced in the state, he controls all the big businesses in his part of the state. Do you realize that?
Why are our conservative friends, and I'm not like bashing on any of, but that's not what I do. But if you and I can sit here and have a conversation and point this out to the listeners of WYAB, why can't other people do that? Why can't we see that and come to some agreement to say, hey, we need to reformulate our plan of attack? And
if we had our ballot, I mean, they hear us and they call it crazy talk when we do ballot initiative. This year you had lobbyists pay the Democrats to push the ballot initiative, although the Republicans had always wanted to say they were going to put the ballot initiative back in place. But no, those lobbyists paid for Democrat lobbyists to come out and make it a Democrat issue to where we would quit talking about the ballot initiative, to where the people of Mississippi can speak.
Well, that is something that we should perhaps talk about and start talking to our state reps like next week about what do we want to have happen in 2027? Because I tell people this, you have to be involved with your state rep right on the top end. If you come in December or November saying, "Hey, I want this bill done," you're already done because you got to talk to a bunch of state reps. You got to grease the wheels. The good thing about the Sharia law is I know what committee it was. It was in Legislative B this time. Might go to Legislative A next time. So work with both of those committees, and hopefully Speaker White will put it in one of those same committees again. But we're seeing these anti-Sharia laws passed in Florida. Texas is. Have you seen Plano, Texas, dude?
No, I have not.
It makes Dearborn look tame. It makes Minnesota look tame.
Wow.
And the thing is, Texans are getting about fed up with it. And you can go do TikTok searches for it and all that. But and they're finding out they fooled around a long time in Texas, and now they're in the find out phase.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're passing all these laws, but how are they going to enforce them? And it's going to be the people taking the city of Plano back, because Epic City it's just incredible. They had their own medical facility, their own school system, madras.
Right.
They're not like a public school like you and I think. It's a religious school where you're indoctrinated on Shia law. There's Shia and Sunni. Sunni's the more passive type of Islam. Shia's the more Iranian type, where you get your Islamic republics. But that's what they were having in Plano, Texas. And there's 3 centers here in Mississippi that are practicing that same stuff. I got to take a commercial break. That is Chip Matthews. I am Andrew Gossard. This is 103.9 WYAB, and we will be right back. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. It's just an hour full of guests, ladies and gentlemen. We got Mr. Chip Matthews in the studio right now, getting ready to talk about another story. But we do have a couple questions from Brother Dogfish. And I got to make sure that Dogfish is always sitting there using code words and stuff. So I want to make sure I have this right. But he says Thune and McConnell have become the roadblocks in the way of making progress. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes.
I would too. I don't understand how Mitch McConnell, who has had strokes on the air, where he's locked up, man. And if it's not a stroke, it's something where he's locking up.
Well, my thing on physical problems, if your mental capacity is there, you should still be there.
Yep, I agree.
If you can't think for yourself and you can't be supportive and move forward, it's time to go.
And that is the biggest complaint that these Gen Zers and or these millennials have, is that they don't feel that they can move up. Now, us Gen Xers, we just don't give a crap.
No.
We're moving forward.
Yeah.
We're going to rub some dirt in it and carry on.
I mean, I hire, and by the way, since I'm on a different program, if you're looking for a job, you can come get a job out at Beethoven's. We have tons of beautiful jobs on the Gulf of Beethoven's, right there at the reservoir.
That's awesome. I want to talk about that too. Let's just go finish this up real quick.
Okay.
They're asking if I got a secondary camera for you. I don't have the time to hook up the camera and all that. So
I'm good.
The GOP needs to get Thune out of the way and do some work. I agree with that, but it's just not the Senate or the Congress. You've got appointees. I find it very surprising that all three female appointees that President Trump put into positions of power, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, and now this lady, Secretary of Labor, they've all resigned or been fired. And I'm sitting there and if you look at it, that's where we've had problems, right?
Right.
And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, could have we done better?
Well, here's the situation. Think about it this way. When Trump came in, he had a game plan.
Yep.
And he had the team that he wanted that wasn't going to ever get approved.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to knock down women. You're not going to knock down and he's done a great job. What's his name?
FBI, Kash Patel.
Well, I'm talking about the gay. What's his name?
Bissett. Scott
Bissett.
Yeah.
You can't. He's above reproach as far as his work he's done so far. But he appointed people that Democrats had to approve, or they would look bad.
Yep.
Because remember, Trump he doesn't like women, according to them. He doesn't. He appointed a whole cast. And he made sure they all were long-haired and pretty and brought them all in.
I didn't want to say it like that, but if you look at Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem, holy smokes.
I mean,
literally.
I mean, it looked like the who's who of, we can get him on all of this. We're going to get him. And what he's done is they've carried the torch and got him into the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And now you got to support him. Well, and he can start approving the other people.
This is the thing about Trump, and a lot of people are not wanting to talk about this, Chip, is they get upset at something that he does. And like, I have really good friends. I'm not going to say the names over the radio, but you would know these people.
Right.
Completely supported Trump. And as soon as Trump says something that you agree with the sentiment, but you don't agree with the delivery, it's like,
what the hell's wrong with you?
We've got to get past that, ladies and gentlemen. We have elected a bruiser and a brawler to take back our country.
And Trump has used these girls, and he's used them, period, to make it easier for you to take it.
Yep.
And to put them in place while he has the people on the back that are going to take their place sitting right there working in the White House to do the job. They're only the face of the program. They're not the worker bees. The worker bees were busy working.
Well, that's what we don't know about, and what I would like to see is all the underlings at the FBI, all the underlings in DOJ. Hamid, what's her name? The Attorney General for Freedom, Civil Liberties. Hamid Dillon or something like that.
Right.
She's gone in there and just done a bang up job, really great job. But outside of her and Kash, I don't know who underneath has done that. Some people are completely upset with Dan Bongino. I think he did everything he could, and he's like, I'm out.
I think he did what he was supposed to do, and that's stir the pot. And then underneath the pot, we're actually getting in there, and we're finding this body and that body who are poison to the system and getting them out.
Where is the prosecution, though?
But you don't have to first you got to get the deep state out of the deep state.
Well,
you got to pull them out. You got to go root out these people that are lying inside the system.
We've got to pat our head and rub our tummies and walk and chew bubble gum
Right.
all at the same time.
And you got to do it with a clock that's going tick, 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 because the 4 years are going to run out. And then everybody's going, oh, we're coming up on midterms. No, Trump doesn't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you're a crook and you're not saying what you're supposed to say and you're not doing what you're supposed to do and you're not being red, white, and blue America, you're out.
Well, this is what I would say to that. The elections do matter because the people who are being affected by this TDS are people not just in the middle, like who one time voting for Trump and Republicans to see how we do, but you've got a lot of people who are traditionally conservative, like, I don't want to vote in the off-year elections just to voice my displeasure. And I get that. But, man, can you imagine if Benny Thompson is now back in charge of Homeland Security?
I mean, think about it.
We're all going to jail.
I mean, 17% of the people have been beaten down, Republican and Democrat.
Yep.
17% were involved in the primaries. 17% of the people of Mississippi were involved in the primary.
Pathetic.
When I talk to y'all, and I say it every day, what the hell is wrong with y'all? The other 87 of you, when we put 100 in a room, 87 of you are going to go, well, we're right. We didn't vote.
Yeah,
we didn't do anything. It isn't our fault.
It infuriates me, and you're going to hear something, and it's going to make you're going to be in disbelief. But if you saw in the Hinds County Executive Committee, the amount of email and communication traffic where we're trying to get people involved and stuff, it's like pulling teeth.
Oh,
and I'm considered more of the outsider, the new guy, and they're like, hey, can you find some people? And I put out the call, and it's like crickets. And I'm like, we've got to start taking action, and it's tough.
I mean, what are they going to do? And I say this about the Republican Party for the state of Mississippi. What are they going to do if Duff down on the coast wins it, and the current attorney general's out, the current lieutenant governor's out, the current state auditor's out, the current are out of government.
Secretary of State.
Yeah, they would all be out of government.
I haven't seen anything for Secretary of State yet.
No, I've seen two names of people that are running for the job, but nobody. The Secretary of State's running for lieutenant governor.
Well, that's White, right?
No, that's Watson.
Watson. I apologize, Secretary
The
Watson.
person that's done so much for election integrity. We don't have any.
Well, that's scary because there is someone who's running that I saw for the Republican side for Secretary of State, but it's a Democrat who voted and cheered on Kamala, and people aren't paying attention to that.
They have a better shot at taking over the state this time than any other time. And it's almost like when everybody Republican is running for governor, are we giving up?
So, Chip,
is the Republican Party of the state giving up? It's my question to you.
Chip, I don't know if they have one of these in Mississippi, but we had one in Illinois, and the name will remain nameless to protect the guilty. But we had a closer who could come in and say, okay, you guys are all done fighting. You three said you run for this, you run for this. We've got to make sure that these other positions are covered. Who is that person in Mississippi who's doing that? For
years they've said it was Haley Barbour.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, who is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it would be Governor Reeves. I honestly think Governor Reeves is going to take over for Roger Wicker.
I see that coming.
Yep, I think
because I don't see him retiring out of government.
Nope. And
either that, or he's going to start another big lobbying firm off of HB2 to just handle all the new money coming in from funding from the schools.
I have to say, we got a minute and a half. I am pro school choice, but and I didn't even talk about this today, Chip, but I've got literally hours of material on the teacher crisis.
Yeah.
And everybody's saying, oh, it's the teachers not getting enough money. No,
no,
they don't want to deal with the hellions coming in kindergarten who can't pay attention, who can't take direction, who are acting the fool in their classroom. And then they're getting in trouble because they're not learning.
Exactly.
And so I understood the argument that Clay was making and that you were making. And I understand the arguments that Lindsay's making too about it. But when it comes down to it, we need schools where people are going to learn. And if your child is a disruption to the classroom, I'm not having you move to a school where your kid is going to go pollute the pond. I mean, it's just what it is.
Well, here's my thing on it. My thing is not. I'm for school choice if school choice was what it was supposed to be. HB2 was nowhere near school choice. It was where you were going to cut out $52 million a year that you weren't going to spend, and it was going to be there. And then the next year, that $52 million, because you're only going to pay for the 10,000 students that could qualify for that money.
The first 10,000 to get in the good deal.
Right.
That's it.
So then all of a sudden you'd have $100 million in 2 years set aside. And you'd go, okay, well, we got to appoint some people to handle this money.
Yep.
We'll call Ted DiBiase and his friends up and let's handle this money.
Yeah. Well, Ted.
Nothing against Ted. Ted was correct.
He was correct. But that's the problem with these NGOs and with this whole thing. Chip, I want to have some time to talk on the other side. We're going to take a quick commercial break. This is the Andrew Gosser Show. I am with Chip Matthews, who will be filling in for Lindsey Beckham. This is 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yeah. You're tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. I'm in the studio with Chip Matthews.
Hey, I got to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Today it's chicken and dumplings and fried pork chops.
Ooh.
I just have to say that.
Chicken and dumpling.
And fried pork chops out of Beethoven's On the Reservoir.
Yep. Hey, real quick, we've got a hot minute here.
Yeah, go.
You said something during the break that I wanted to talk about. You said putting your money where your mouth is.
Right.
And I want to hear about this because on Sundays I know my times of when I've got to do stuff, but what are you planning to do on Sundays?
On Sunday at the restaurant, we've started doing gospel bluegrass and we do a buffet every Sunday now. Sunday day we do a buffet. We do a buffet on Sunday, and you can come in that way after church. You can get your food because everybody's been sitting in front of the preacher. Yeah. They lose their religion waiting on a waiter. Yeah. So you got to give them a plate, let them go ahead and get their food. But after you enjoy that and enjoy looking at the water and the sun on the water and all of that there, we're going to, after the bluegrass ends, every Sunday, we're going to have the soapbox, political soapbox. And it's a 30 minutes while we're changing over from bands. But for that 30 minutes, depending on how many politicians we have, we're going to divide up the time and let politicians come and speak every Sunday.
That is absolutely incredible.
And because I'm just tired of people not getting to know their politician.
This would be a great place too for up and coming people on the bench to get up there in front of people. And that first speech that you give, it's always kind of crazy. I remember mine. But once you do it the first time, it's like riding a bicycle.
So we're going to call it the political soapbox. And somebody said, Chip, you're trying to upstage the Neshoba County Fair? I said, that was everywhere.
Yeah,
that used to be everywhere. Canton and oh brother, where art thou? They see that on the square in Canton. And of course in Canton, they said, no, Chip, you can't do that. That's just wrong. We don't want to be that political. I'm going, what do you mean?
Yep.
Politics is your entire world.
You don't have to care about politics, but politics cares about you, brother. Yeah, it does. We're getting ready to crash on out here, but I want to say thank you for coming in. And to the listening audience, I had so much on these new teachers who are quitting the profession because of the Gen Alpha kids who can't read at age 10, who are using speak to text in their text messages because they can't type. And we're going to get that tomorrow. Chip, what are you talking about here?
I'm going to talk more. I'll bring up the subject of the mayor's girlfriend, the mayor Jackson's girlfriend.
We didn't even get that.
I'll get that in. And then I'll also get in where they arrested a 70-year-old woman in Canton for disturbing the peace. They said, and I'm saying, how did she disturb the peace? She's 70 years old. And all she was doing was crossing the street.
Did she have a bullhorn street preaching?
No, she just walked up to a police officer and said, would you please watch this traffic out here in the road?
My goodness. There are so many things that we try to support our police officers and everything, but every once in a while you get a story like this and you're just like, what the heck is going on? What the heck is going on? Well, Chip, it's been awesome to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
I sincerely appreciate it. It's great talking with our sponsor. If you're looking for foundation help, go check out my X and Twitter. I've got all the information there. You have been listening to the Andrew Gosser Show. We're going to take our top of the hour break. Chip and I are going to do a high five tag out, and then you're going to have Chip Matthews for the next hour. Take care, everybody. Be blessed, and amen.
Amen.